thank everybody for coming out this morning, and we want to make comment on House Bill 79 as amended in the House. As amended in the House, the bill would give the governor the authority to appoint and to remove and appoint school board members in the city of Atlanta. That bill has been amended and is on its way back over to the Senate. Let me correct myself, that's Senate Bill 79. It was authored by Senator Carter of Savannah. That bill went over to the House kind of pristine it made a change to the terms of service of Savannah school board members as a general bill, and then was amended in the House with this language. We have several concerns about the amendment that was added on to Senate Bill 79. I will very quickly go over those 4 points and then ask Senator Tate and Senator James to go into more detail. One concern that we have is the voting rights implications of the bill. The voting rights implication of the bill. In effect, if this bill was to pass and the governor was to implement the provisions of Senate Bill 79, he would be able to remove and to reappoint or appoint school board members. That is in effect a nullification of 9 elections. That would in effect be the nullification of 9 elections. Voters in the city of Atlanta would have their votes nullified. Great concern. We believe this has voting rights implications. The Voting Rights Act of 1965 says that minority voters must have the opportunity to vote for a candidate of their choice. That's what the Voting Rights Act of 1965 says, and we believe that it applies here. Now, the proponents of Senate Bill 79, the amendment that's in the bill, will say to you, well, there's a provision for pre-clearance in the bill. It would have to be pre-cleared by the Department of Justice. But the fact of the matter is, just because a bill is pre-cleared does not mean that there will not be and cannot be a federal lawsuit on this issue. There has been other court cases regarding just this kind of issue. I've consulted with voting rights attorneys yesterday who believe that there are substantive issues, and that at that time, if this was to pass and the governor was to implement that amendment, the amendment of Senate Bill 79, it would be ripe for a lawsuit. So we believe that Senate Bill 79 would impact the voting rights of citizens of the city of Atlanta. 2, there's a process issue. The governor committed to the Atlanta delegation that he would maintain communication. He would maintain communication with the Atlanta delegation. I, for one, and my colleagues were complimented the governor early in the session back in January. It seems so far long ago. We said to the governor, thank you for interrupting my train of thought. Hold on. We said to the governor that we appreciated him reaching out to the Atlanta delegation. Since that meeting in January, we have heard nothing from the governor. We believe he's reneged on that commitment. He's reneged on the commitment to stay in contact with the Atlanta delegation. We have not heard from the governor. We have not heard from his liaisons. As a matter of fact, we did invite the 2 liaisons, Representative Abrams and Ms. Beskin, to meet with the Atlanta delegation last week. Representative Abrams showed up. Ms. Beskin did not deem it in her purview, for whatever reason, to come to that meeting and report back to the Atlanta Senate delegation. So we are very concerned that the governor's reneged on that commitment to maintain communications with the legislature, with the Atlanta delegation. Third, we're concerned about the retroactive nature of this bill. As you remember, when I believe it was Senate Bill 84 last year was passed, it was not made retroactive. It did not apply to elections that occurred before 2010. This bill, Senate Bill 79, as it is amended, would make it retroactive. We've been told by some lawyers that there's some issues about the retroactive nature of the bill, and that that there's a constitutional issue that arises out of it. And then fourth, and this may be the most compelling problem with this bill, is we've been told by Representative Abrams that the Atlanta School Board has made progress in reconciling the issues before them regarding their accreditation. We've been told by her that if the process remains in place and they continue making the same kind of progress, that she believes that they will meet the accreditation goals. So for the governor or for anyone else to put forward this kind of proposal creates a lot of dissension, a lot of division in the city of Atlanta amongst teachers, amongst parents, amongst students, and amongst the community at large. We are very concerned that the atmosphere created by this issue, created by this legislation, is counterproductive to maintaining the accreditation of the City of Atlanta schools. So for those reasons, those 4 reasons, we've come here to make comment on that and to let the community at large know that Senate Bill 79 is not needed at this time. I'm going to ask Senator Tate, the chair of the Atlanta delegation on the Senate side, to come forward and follow up on my comments.
Well, Senator Fort made all of the points very well that we have concerns about. The governor not staying informed, keeping us informed, and not communicating with us is a grave problem. There is no reason at this point for him to replace, if that bill were to pass, the school board. It's not to even say that if he were to replace the school board at this point in the process, that would allow Atlanta to keep its accreditation. A new board at this point has to fulfill all of the requirements that the original board, the board that is presently in place, would have to fulfill. They have gotten a mediator as required by SACS, and they've made other progress. They have one benchmark that's coming up in May, which, as we said, the liaison feels very clearly that if they continue on this path, that come September, that they will be off of probation. So we're quite concerned with the reason behind the possible appointment by the governor, and what will that really do other than to possibly undermine our community at large. So that's a grave concern for all of us. Now we'll turn it over to Senator Donzella James for further comments.
Good morning. I concur with my fellow senators on this issue. I know that my biggest concern is, of course, the welfare of our children who will be negatively impacted if this bill passes, in my opinion. And I've heard from many of the school board members, as well as from many of the people in my community, that they don't want this bill to pass because the school board is working their issues out. And the children will be the ones who will suffer because this is no fault of their own. This is inappropriate behavior of a school board. It is not anything that should adversely affect our children, and it will. I have a concern about the accreditation as well. I know that what happened to Clayton County last year should not happen to the students here in the Atlanta school system. So we want to make sure that we look at every issue. First of all, why would the governor or anyone else be able to appoint members when the voters have spoken? We have a system already that if the voters are in objection to what the elected officials are doing, then they have a process already. It's in the law. So why are we duplicating anything? They can recall, and that is a possibility. If the voters, the citizens who Atlanta School Board represents wants to recall them, they have that option. And I don't think we should take the power from the people. So that is my stand, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer it.
we'll take questions as a follow-up in a second. You may have heard that the governor say that he doesn't want this authority. He doesn't want, it's not something he's involved in. If that is indeed the case, if he doesn't want it, then he ought to say so. If he doesn't want this authority, the governor ought to say, no, I don't want this. I don't want to create more dissension before the fact. You know, people have told me, I think he said publicly, I've read in some of the newspapers that y'all have write for, that he doesn't want this power. If he doesn't want it, he don't need it. And he should come out and say, please don't do this. And then finally, you know, I just find it ironic that the state would want to reappoint school board members at a time when the state's record on educating children is abysmal. You know, we've cut over here more than $1 billion in the last 9 years from education, and this year we're cutting $100 million from education. I think that the state has more than enough to do, has its hands full as far as education is concerned, and needs to keep hands off of the city of Atlanta. At that, we will take any questions that you might have.
Senator Ford, you mentioned that this legislation, should it pass, could be ripe for a lawsuit, a federal lawsuit. Is that something that you would be prepared to move forward with? Is that something that you all have discussed moving forward with in the event that this passes and becomes law?
I can only speak for myself in a word, absolutely. My colleagues can chime in.
Absolutely. And this would be a cost to, this would be an unnecessary cost to Georgia. Right now, we are cutting everything to the bare bone and trying to find monies just to keep essential programs in education. Why would we spend more money to go to court over an issue that we don't have to create?
Amen.
Senator James, as long as I've got you up here, certainly you mentioned your concern over the accreditation issue. You would propose legislation trying to protect these children should the Atlanta public school system lose its accreditation. I guess after you all met with the liaison, did you feel better about, I guess, the system's prospects for getting off of probation?
Yes, because when we met with her, Stacey Abrams, she talked to us straight, and she told us her opinion, and we value that opinion, and that is that they are working diligently to take care of their own problem and resolve it. So we want to give them that opportunity. That's what they deserve, especially since they're making progress. They're not just standing still. They're not sitting on their hands, in other words.
Mm-hmm.
And Senator James is right. If I would characterize the way what was reported to us by the Representative Abrams is that if they continue to make the kind of progress they are making now, she is confident that they will meet the accreditation goals. That is not to say that it's been a smooth process, but that, you know, she was very, as Senator James said, very straight talking with us. And she said there were some concerns that she had about how things were going, and there were some good points. But all in all, that if they continue to make the progress they're making now, that they would maintain accreditation. The concern that we have, as I said, is that when you have a hit a week, when you have the mayor wanting to take over the school system, when you have step up, step down, and step out making their comments, and then you have this coming, it's a hit a week, and it undermines the progress that the system is making in meeting accreditation. We all want the City of Atlanta Public Schools to maintain their accreditation. But when you have the mayor power grabbing, when you have the governor trying to do this, it really undermines the progress. The mayor ought to stay in City Hall. The governor ought to stay under the Gold Dome, and we need to do everything we can to help the Board of Education maintain the accreditation for the Atlanta Public Schools.
And can I just answer too? That's Senate Bill 119, and it has not passed the House yet. It's stuck in a committee, a subcommittee, and that bill would have given all of the graduates who are Hope eligible, if the school loses accreditation, it would give them an opportunity to still use the Hope Scholarship. And so that's all that bill would do. And so we need to pass that bill in the event that things continue to go in the direction that they appear to be going.
So that could still pass before the end of the
It
session?
could still pass, yes, it has to come out of committee on Monday and be read and go on the rules.
There's a
Yes.
question right over here.
Senator Ford, you've mentioned the mayor and the governor. Are there any other stakeholders you feel are sort of behind the curtain, pulling the strings on this? Is
You
this
know,
political?
I am not going to speculate as to who might be pulling any strings. But the fact of the matter is, over with the CRCT issue, there was an attempted cover-up of the CRCT scandal. And we know from the research done by the media and others that in the State Board of Education, that the business community, Chamber of Commerce in particular, was very involved in that cover-up of the CRCT scandal. And, I would assume that the business community is still very involved in, I don't want to use the word orchestrating, but implementing a plan on this issue. We see in some of the quote-unquote editorials that are written, we see fingerprints of a certain arm of the business community. What is that? The ACP, the Atlanta for John Ahmed's group.
Central
So
Atlanta Progress? Central Atlanta Progress?
no, Atlanta something for progress. But I mean, we see the fingerprints, and I don't know if it's coordinated, how well it's coordinated, but we know that the business communities, as they said, after the CRCT scandal, they're going to remain involved in any way that they can.
Have either of you talked to members of the board? Have you sat down with the complete 9-member board to discuss these issues?
At different times, I know Senator Tate and I have spoken either directly or indirectly
And
with
what was
school
that
board members.
conversation?
Well, I was concerned that the only solution that the four in the minority on the board, I was concerned that the only solution that they saw fit, and I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail because it was some private discussions, but the only solution that they saw fit was that they be put back in their positions that they previously held. A solution that was in my estimation, was no solution at all. But that's as much as I want to say on that.
Senator Ford, you did bring up Mayor Reed, who did come over to the Capitol to voice his support for this amendment. One of the concerns that he had was that although the school board appears to be making progress, he was saying that they weren't making progress fast enough, and that could jeopardize the accreditation process, or reinstatement process. Was that, I guess, something that Representative Abrams communicated to you all as the liaison, that
No, she did not.
The timing of
That-
it was
no.
was a concern, or?
That
Is that something
the
that you-
timing of
that their progress was not happening fast enough?
no, that's not something she made. That's not something she
No.
Is
communicated
that
to us.
something that any of you feel?
I mean,
No.
I've already characterized it that she said that if they continue to make the progress at the rate that they are now,
Oh, I know, but
she
you-
sees the Atlanta Public Schools maintaining their accreditation. Now, I don't know on what basis that the mayor was making his statements. You'd have to ask him. But the fact of the matter is, we all have enough issues to deal with over at City Hall, here at the state capitol, and over at the Atlanta Public Schools.
Did you talk to Ms. Abrams about your voting rights concerns, and did you ask her to come here with
We
you this
communicated
morning,
not only to her, but to Representative Ash, who's one of the authors of the amendment. We communicated to Kathy Ash, Representative Ash. Representative Lindsay did not come to the meeting. We communicated to Representative Abrams that we believe that there were voting rights implications. We were told, well, it has a provision for pre-clearance, which is kind of boilerplate for anything that impacts voting. We told her that, pre-clearance does not preclude legal challenges to what we believe would be a nullification of the votes of the citizens that we represent.
What precedent is there in the country about this? Has this been done somewhere else before?
I have a memo on these issues from Lachlan McDonald, who you may know is the premier voting rights attorney in the Southeast. You know, I'm not a lawyer. I skimmed the memo. I spoke to him. He talked to me about the issue. He believes there's substantive issues involved in this kind of situation. But I am not gonna, you know, I will let you take a look at the memo. I'm not gonna deem to do the lawyering